In conversation with the Valley Radio Online.
According to the Talmud, which is the Jewish commentary on Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, there's a piece in the Talmud where somebody goes to a village and says, I need spiritual help and advice. Where's the rabbi? And they said, the rabbi's out of town. He said, so show me the carpenter. Because the carpenter was kind of next in rank to the rabbi. And the carpenter in those days was almost like the surgeon of the village because he knew how to bevel wood. He dealt with setting bones.
So Jesus was wealthy in your viewpoint?
He certainly was fairly middle class.
And so what we've been taught in the Bible is completely wrong impression of what Jesus was like. It
certainly is. There's nothing to say that he was despised and rejected. That's from Isaiah. There's absolutely nothing to say that he didn't make a good living.
Because most of us, this is where going through the eye of a needle, a camel going through the eye of a needle, is ingrained in us.
It is, and the love of money is the root of all evil. That's St. Paul, but happy to get back to that. The eye of the needle one, there is a legend, it's not true unfortunately, I wish it were, that there was a gate in Jerusalem and a camel couldn't get through it laden. So a camel couldn't get through the eye of the needle if it was laden with baggage. But the method behind it is, it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of the needle than it is for a man laden with possessions to reach the kingdom of God. Now, the wealthy don't generally have to search their souls because they're happy. Now, some people will dispute that with me, but what Jesus is trying to say is those who aren't laden with possessions are happy. And a wealthy person I'm incredibly wealthy. I don't have a huge amount of possessions, but I can go anywhere I want in the world at any given point and I can drop everything to do it. Now, that's Jesus' kind of wealth. Whereas somebody who, they can't move because of the school catchment area. They can't move because of the mortgage. They can't do this, they can't do that. And they've got to make so much every single month because they have to make the mortgage. That's when you're laden with possessions, and that's when you get pulled away from your real search for happiness in life because you've got to do this stuff. And that's how I'd update that teaching. In Jesus' day, and certainly today, if you've got an awful lot of money, you've got an awful lot of responsibility.
Well, that leads us on to prosperity. It's your contention that it's our birthright to be prosperous, which seems at odds to most people's lives because that isn't the case. Why is that?
Well, because we get weighed down by these possessions, because we make the external world much more important than the internal world. And the external world is run by what happens in the news or what happens outside. So if you let your world be run by circumstance or the external world, you follow what's known as the karma of your country. So you go through a recession with the rest of the world, or you come up through a recession, out of a recession with the rest of the world, because you're not thinking for you, you're thinking what you've been trained to think. And we do that all the time, and I had to unravel so many thoughts about Christianity, about religion, about faith, about spiritual people shouldn't charge. Also, the trouble is our brains are actually wired for unhappiness. Well, they're wired for fear because our brains don't evolve as fast as the world has evolved. We've still got vast amounts of our brains that think we're out on the savannah or in the forest. And in the savannah, in the forest, you've got to be wired. It's like Velcro for fear and Teflon for happiness.
Is this what you were referring to as the reticular brain that filters out things?
Yes, it filters stuff. What comes in through our ears and our eyes is filtered by the part of the brain which some people call the reptilian part, but I believe it's the reticular activating system, the cortex at the back here. Because the ego or the subconscious can hold, I think it's about 4 billion bytes of information in a second, and the conscious mind can hold 4. So we've got all this stuff that is in there and recorded. And for example, if I say to you now your left foot, you'll be aware of your left foot, but you weren't aware of it 30 seconds ago. No, it was just getting on with stuff nicely. And if you think about your left foot, it'll actually start tingling.
And is this why sometimes people see a £20 note on the ground and others don't?
You won't see it. Yes. If you haven't got a prosperity consciousness in your mind, the reticular activating system will not look for prosperous events in your life. And it'll walk past money, it'll walk past the shop sign that says every person who comes in here gets a free holiday. Because the eyes will see it but it won't register in the brain because the attention has not been called sufficiently towards happy things. But it can't be, because you can only hold a certain amount in your consciousness at any one time. And if you've got all the messages from every cell in your body every second going through to your consciousness, and for example, we've got a bit of traffic noise, we've got some people around here, we've got some bird song, we've got some ducks quacking around, but hopefully you're listening to the sound of my voice because that's what you want to listen to. But if everything was not filtered, every sound would be of equal resonance and you wouldn't be able to pick out what you wanted. It's a very, very important part of the brain, but up to the age of 7, it gets trained in a tribal way to find out how are you going to survive. So it learns on repetition. So whatever your parents said about money, what they said at money about church or school, and not just money, everything, happiness. And all these phrases, money doesn't buy you love, where there's not this brass, rich bitch, and all these things, if they're repeated by your parents, they become truth in this part of the brain. And if it's truth for that part of the brain, it isn't going to bother to show you anything else.
You've had this amazing career in radio, television.
Yes.
But you've also had some life-threatening encounters.
Yes.
And that must, I'm talking about the barracuda off the coast of
Yes, well that was
Australia.
very important. I ran away after Henry died, and at the time I was still very wealthy, certainly in financial terms, so I could afford to go to Australia. I had friends who were going around Australia, around the world on a year's sabbatical. And I just couldn't deal with being a widow. I was too young, and it had been such a short time, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And people were giving me such conflicting messages, such as, you're wearing too much black, dear, and you shouldn't be seen out with Adrian, dear, what will people think? And I was going crazy. So I ran away, and I went to Cairns, which is where I was going to meet Sarah and Pete. But in those days, before mobile phones and the internet, you couldn't necessarily meet somebody who was coming in from somewhere to somewhere else in Australia on exactly the same day. And they took 4 days to get there, and it was my 33rd birthday. And to be honest, I was not thinking straight, and I wasn't sure I wanted to live. I didn't want to kill myself, but if a bus had hit me, I really wasn't going to be bothered about it. And I was thinking I'd had such an amazing life up till then. And what was the point? What was the point?
Or was it the law of attraction that brought these?
Well, that was another wake-up call, because I was saying, I don't know if I want to live. And that's where your guidance will come in, which says, honey, in your brain, if you don't want to live, trust me, you're going to find a way not to live.
So in other words, the law of attraction brought in the barracuda.
It gave me the test. So it was my birthday, so I thought, I've got to do something. I love snorkeling, so I went out on the Barrier Reef, which I didn't even realise in those days is a reef and deep water. They told me very clearly, don't go in the deep water, it's dangerous. The shallow water is fine, it's quite safe, we've got an eye out for you there. Do not swim in the deep water. We know there's an 8-foot barracuda. It's attacked somebody 20 miles from here. And 20 miles is nothing to a big fish like that. Now, it's probably fine, but don't go in the deep water. Stay in the shallows. But actually, the law of attraction is quite interesting as a quick diversion there. Because when you say to a child, don't do that, you'll fall off, don't do that, you'll fall off, what happens? The child falls off. Because the universe doesn't deal in negatives. So it was, don't swim in the deep water, don't swim in the deep water, don't swim in the deep water.
So it's the idle words that you're putting out actually brings it to you.
Yes, and I went down into the shallow water, and it was all full of people having fun. And that repulsed me, because the law of attraction is so that I was miserable. I couldn't stay with the people having fun. So I obeyed the commands to swim out in the deep water, and guess what? There was the 8-foot barracuda, and it was very big, and it had a lot of teeth. And it was not nice. But I was being very innocent, because I am so gullible, Clive. I still am gullible. I won't say that. I used to be gullible, I am no longer gullible. And I thought, there's a wonderful big fish, and I got my underwater camera, so I took a picture, and I went... Because the flash caught its attention, and it turned around and started coming for me really fast. And I just lay in the water, and I thought, I want to live. I want to live. And it was just so clear. I want to live. And this voice just came through my head. I still cry now because it was amazing. And it said, and it was words you would never expect. It said, swim forward as fast as you can, make as much noise as you can, and when you get close to it, hit it on the nose with your fist. So I did. I went, ah! And I got about as close to it as I am to you, which is what, about 1.5 meters? And it flipped away. It flipped away, and it could flip. My God, it was fast. And it looked at me cautiously, and I stayed still in the water. And then this voice in my head, it sounded sort of kind of resigned. It said, "You can swim backwards."